entertainment, sir. Shall we have a wager between ourselves?
Sure, what do you suggest, cousin?
Well, would a guinea be too deep for you on this occasion, sir?
21
Hey,
shillings!
well, cousin, last cockfight, seems to me we had £1 10 shillings.
Well, this is no mere cockfight, nor mere cocks, indeed. Shall we make it 2 guineas then, sir? 2 gold guineas.
2 guineas it is. To the victor.
To the victor.
Y'all heard that Sally song, ain't you? All right, let's go. Hooray, hooray, ho. Round the corn salad. 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 Hooray for all the lovely ladies. Round the corn salad. Hooray for all the lovely ladies. Round the corn salad. Oh, Master sure to have you. Round the corn salad. A special thing when once he gets you. Round the corn salad. Young and old, ugly and pretty. Round the corn salad. He go to church with her on Sunday. Round the corn salad. And don't come back from town till Monday. Round the corn salad. Hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. Round the corn salad. Round the corn salad. Sunday come and go now. Round the corn salad. See old Reed when he a coming. Round the corn salad. And that is when I start to humming. Round the corn salad. Shucking corn as good as any. Round the corn salad. For some food and drink aplenty. Round the corn salad. Some say go and some say no. Round the corn salad. I don't know which way to go. Round the corn salad. I said hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. I said hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. I said hooray, hooray, ho. Hooray, hooray, ho. Don't trust that devil. He gonna take my wife. Take my wife. Don't want to run. Gonna stay here now. Stay here now. I ain't that sleepy, but I'm gonna lie down. I'm gonna lie down. I ain't that sleepy, but I'm gonna lie down. I'm gonna lie down. Y'all keep on working. Got corn to shuck. Got corn to shuck. I ain't that sleepy. Got corn to shuck. Got corn to shuck. My women so good. They'll beat your men. Just keep on trying. Try once again. My women so good now. They'll beat your men. Just keep on trying. We try again. You shuck your corn like I shuck mine. You shuck your corn like I shuck mine. Go down to the river and stay right there. Go down to the river.
We're going to have to determine, because Mistress Lucy Burrow is going to determine who's going to have the bigger pile. And y'all said you're done shucking. Look at what I found here. My pile.
What a waste upon myself.
Come on, Mistress Lucy. Now, you know that my boys, they done got the bigger pile here.
Yes, take a very close and thorough inspection, my dear. Teams in front of which pile. This is the larger, my dear.
Please, this looks like this is the biggest pile. I would say that this, all that work that I've done worked on here, and I've been making sure that everybody here been working real hard.
Very carefully, my dear.
Yes, ma'am. I know when to keep my mouth shut. I know when I shouldn't be talking no more. You don't have to tell me to shut up
Now is the
anymore.
time, Mr. Reed.
Yes, ma'am. I certainly will keep myself quiet now.
My dear cousin, your team has put forth a valiant effort, I must say.
They certainly have.
But I must declare my husband the winner.
Yes, I knew my team was going to win. I knew that I was going to do this. I knew that I'd get them to make the biggest corn pile. They's the best corn shuckers I ever trained, I got to tell you that.
Well, as you can see, the corn shuck held importance for all of those involved. Overseer Reed was trying to impress his owner by having everything prepared and ready to go.
The owners were trying to show that their slaves were the best workers around.
And the slaves got the chance to gather with old friends or family members they hadn't seen in a while.
Now, you'll get a chance to talk to someone who is at the shuck.
We're with Joe, the carpenter from Carter's Grove Plantation. He was one of the team leaders at the shuck and will answer any questions you have about what you just saw.
We have Caleb from Dallas, Texas. Go ahead, Caleb.
What effect did the Emancipation Proclamation have on the slaves and their owners in the South?
Well, you asking about emancipating folks. I ain't heard of such here. Most folks down on this here plantation is enslaved. It may be different where you at, but ain't nothing of that done happened yet.
Our next caller is Warren from Port St. Lucie, Florida. Go ahead, Warren.
If a slave was caught running away, what were the consequences?
You asked if a slave ran away, what might happen, what the consequences? Well, if he get caught, he can be brought back to his master, you know. And they might just go on and give him terrible lashing out in front of everybody for to see. And if he's a constant runner, they might go ahead and just kind of string him up. Depends on his master most of the time.
We have Amy from Carteret, New Jersey. Go ahead, Amy.
When a slave dies, do they have a proper burial, and where do they bury them?
When slaves die, all the farms and plantations of folks around, sometimes loved ones and friends, they done been at Saturday night gatherings, they know each other. They either get time off for the master letting them go, or some of them just run off to go to that person's funeral, you know. We all get together, find a place that person would want to be buried at. We don't have stones and such, but we put something on top of the grave, an old piece of pottery or broken pot or something that remember them by, so we'll know where they've been buried.
Our next caller is Ariel from Deerfield, Illinois. Go ahead, Ariel.
Where did most of the slaves live before they became slaves?
Where did most of the slaves live before they became slaves? Well, you got folks living in all parts of Africa. Old Parrish tell me down at Carter's Grove, and he said some of them lived near the water and some lived near the woods and the trees. He said they lived in round houses over in Africa and come over here to the colonies and live in board split houses and such. So they live in all kind of places before they came over here as slaves.
We have Aaron from Vancouver, Washington. Go ahead, Aaron.
When slaves were singing and dancing at the corn shuck, didn't they get much work done? And if not, would they have gotten in trouble?
When slaves did what you say now?
When slaves were singing and dancing at the corn shuck, did they get much work done? And if not, would they have gotten in trouble?
Oh, the dancing and singing at the corn shuck is a way of just kind of keeping your mind off the work. Don't think that they ain't getting the work done. That's just a fun time. If you sitting out there working all the time and you got to think about that hard work, yeah, then it's real slowing down, it's dragging you down. But when you singing, you getting the work done.
Next caller is Johnny from Houston, Texas. Go ahead, Johnny.
Hello?
Hello.
How much did slaves cost?
How much did slaves cost? Well, I don't rightly know all the monies that they might pay for the slave, but I know that a tradesman earn about 30-some pounds a year, and it might cost you 1 or 2 years' earnings to buy a slave. Masters determine all them kind of amounts of money.
We have Jess from Denton, Texas. Go ahead, Jess.
I was wondering, what jobs did they usually do in the corn mill?
Could you repeat that, please?
What jobs did they usually do in the corn mills?
Sound like you asking what kind of work they do at the cone shuck. First, you got to cut the cone out the field, pull it off the stalks, and then during the shucking, you got to take the outer shell off and strip it on down, and then later on, you got to shell the cone. It's a lot of work to do in a cone shucking.
Next caller is Kelly from Stanford, Connecticut. Go ahead, Kelly.
Where did they get the clothes that they are wearing?
Could you repeat your question, Kelly?
Where did they get the clothes that they are wearing?
You want to know where we get the clothes that we're wearing. Well, you see, your master is responsible for taking care of his slaves. And he's supposed to give you food and shelter and clothes and such, medicine and doctoring if you're sick. So he rations out clothes to you once a year. In the spring, you get lighter clothes, and towards the winter, as it gets cold, you get wool and linen clothes and a pair of shoes and such.
We have Oris from Groton, Connecticut. Go ahead, Oris.
Did the masters limit how many kids the slaves could have?
What you say again? Say that again.
Did the masters limit how many kids the slaves could have?
How many kids the slave could have? I don't rightly know if a master's sitting up there and being too concerned about how many children the slaves might have. Some masters probably want them to have as many children as they can. You know, in any pregnancy a woman has, she'd be blessed if she make it through the pregnancy, and if the child lived, that's really a good thing.
The greatest significance of the corn shuck event to the slave community was the communication network. Slaves had the occasion to spread the word of political happenings.
The Dunmore Proclamation was such an event. It was the first government-issued opportunity for slaves to gain freedom without their own permission, about 100 years before President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation.
Would news such as this spread like wildfire in the slave community? And what would they think of it? Let's take a look.
Y'all been down at Utopia. Y'all need to hear what Gabe had to say about what he found out in town here. Everybody listen.
Last night I went to town, I was talking to my wife Phyllis.
Yeah?
And she was talking to her Uncle Jose. And she said that her Uncle Jose said that Lord Dunmore said that if anybody or any slaves who want to go fight for the British and what they think is going to be a war will be free.
I know he been saying that for a while. Because I remember, huh?
Did he say that on paper or did he just say it?
I'm ready to see the paper now.
I heard it.
You say you gonna put it on paper?
Today.
Today on paper.
Today.
I believe nothing that your governor says. None.
But if you say it on paper, if you say it on the paper, you gotta believe
I doubt he says it on paper. No, the man can't fight. I don't trust nothing nobody got to say. The governor, I don't trust him neither. Especially since he's talking about freedom.
Child, you got to trust somebody.
I think so.
You know it's better than the devil you don't know.
Freedom? Sound.
Sounds good. I can see it on the paper, though. Yeah.
Well, you know there was them four people. Last year, went up, you heard about that, they went up to the governor's mansion, the governor's palace, knocked on the front door, because you know that rumor been out for a while that he was going to free the slaves. Knocked on the front door, and the governor man answered the door, and them two men, four Negroes said, "We come here to be free." They said, "Ain't no freedom." They sent them right to jail. But now it's time.
One day they send somebody's plantation, send them to jail.
That's right.
Still thinking on it, ain't you?
Johnny, now that Master Randolph is dead, do you think the missus gonna have a need for all us here anymore?
I don't know.
Well, ain't you thinking on it now?
A little. But I try to keep busy. Ain't no need worrying over something you can't control. Whatever will happen, will happen.
Now, that ain't good enough for me no more.
It's got to be. Listen to me, Eve. The best thing you can do is stay busy at your work and see if you can find some peace between the two of us. Now look, we got work to do in the dining room. Come on with me.
Hey there, Johnny. Eve.
How you doing, baby?
I'm doing all right. Sorry to hear about the passing of Mr. Randolph. Y'all managing all right?
Well, as can be expected, Venus.
Well, Eve, I didn't see you or anybody else from the house this morning at market. So I reckon you ain't heard what's been going on.
What you talking about, Venus?
These white folks about to go crazy. That's what I'm talking about.
I thought the market looked busy this morning. What happened? The governor take the gunpowder from the magazine again?
No, but he issued a letter from that boat he run off to.
Letter? What kind of letter?
One that I gather, the states that slaves gonna be free.
You mean to tell me what Gabriel told us out at Carter's Grove at the corn shuck is right?
Right as rain. When I was at market this morning, a whole group of men came running up in a tizzy to the courthouse. Well, they was talking about what they was going to do to keep their slaves from leaving. Well, one of them was reading a part of this letter. You know, they put them up all around town. Well, I managed to get a hold of one, but I ain't had much chance of looking over it yet.
Ain't just talking about it, but it's in writing.
Don't waste no more time now. Read it.
Hold on now. Anyhow, it says, I do, in virtue of the power and authority to me given by His Majesty, determine to execute martial law.
Martial law? What does that mean?
I think it means the king's troops gonna be running things in town now.
Wait, here it is. And I do hereby further declare all indentured servants, Negroes or others, appertaining to rebels, free, that they are able and willing to bear arms, they joining His Majesty's troops as soon as may be, given under my hand on board the ship William off Norfolk, Dunmore.
Freedom. Lord, I never thought it'd come like this.
You don't look like you could tote nobody's musket.
Well, I might not be able to tote a musket, but I can cook and I can fill a wash pot. Listen, I'll do anything they want me to do as long as I can be free.
I'm sure there's a whole lot of folks thinking on this thing.
Thinking about it? I've been thinking on being free all my life, and I ain't got to think about it.
You think you the only one? All I'm saying is let's take our time and see. Make sure we know what's going on. Make sure it ain't no trick. Then we decide.
Careful who you say these things to, Eve. Times like this, you might find your own turn against you. Meanwhile, let's just keep an ear out. I gotta go.
Look, day to you.
You've seen how word about Dunmore's proclamation has spread. Gabe heard a rumor from his wife, who lives in town, and he told it to everyone at the corn shuck out at the plantation.
Venus, who was at the corn shuck, saw the proclamation at the market in town. She brings it across town to Eve, who was also at the shuck, and Johnny, who was not.
From there, the word passed from person to person, and speculation about what the proclamation means to the slave community begins.
We have Hattie with us. She wasn't at the shuck, but works at Kingsmill Plantation. She's a pretty independent woman and can answer your questions about the proclamation or slave life. Please call us now with your questions, and remember to speak loudly.
Our first caller is Jamie from Vancouver, Washington. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Did the slaves run away with their family, or were they split up?
Well, it greatly depends. A number of folks did run off with their loved ones, but a number of them, if their loved ones was too sick or something, they just went on by themselves.
All right, now we have Justin from Middletown, Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Justin.
How old are slaves when you buy them?
How old are slaves when you buy them? Well, the truth of the matter, throughout all of the colonies, all 13 of them, if your parents are here in the colonies and any children born to them are born slaves, that's right, born a slave, those who are brought in here on the boats, well, usually they're not much younger than, say, 10.
We have Liz from Grand Prairie, Texas. Liz, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, how old do you have to be to fight for Britain under Dunmore's proclamation?
Well, looking at the proclamation itself, it don't put no age on it. It just says able-bodied folk. So if you 14, 15, 16, you got a good-sized body on you and you can tote a musket, then I reckon they'll take you into the army.
Now we have Francisca from Houston, Texas. Go ahead, Francisca.
What would be the punishment if a master caught a slave escaping with a fake pass?
Oh, my goodness. Well, if you caught with a pass that ain't right, well, the first thing that's going to happen to you more than likely is that, well, the slave patrollers are usually the ones that would find you, and they're going to take you down to the jail, and you have to stay up in that jail until your master come for you or send someone for you. And when that happens, well, by the time you get back home, if your master decides he's going to try to make an example out of you, well, he can do basically anything he wants to you, up to and including killing you or taking your family from you.
We have Dakota from Wichita, Texas. Go ahead. Wichita Falls, Texas. Go ahead.
Could very many of the slaves read or write?
Well, here in the capital city of Williamsburg, there are a number of slave folks that can read and write. There are no laws against it. As a matter of fact, a person will learn to read or write if their work requires it. That's true whether you are a Britisher or whether you are a person who's born of African folks.
All right, now we have Monica from West Salem. Please go ahead, Monica.
About how many times would it occur that the master and a Negro slave would have a mulatto child?
Will you please repeat that?
Question.
What?
Monica, will you please repeat your question a little louder?
Okay. About how many times would it occur that the master and a Negro slave would have a mulatto child?
Well, honey, let me tell you, you asking something that's been going on from the beginning of folks coming together. The truth of the matter is there are a number of folks who's born of a white parent or a Negro parent. Sometimes it is the master and one of his slave women, and sometimes it's one of these indentured servant gals coming over and they find themselves a Negro man that they like. It goes either way because the heart often goes where it wants to. And sometimes, well, sometimes women folks ain't got a choice and something like that. But there are a lot of folks around that are mulatto, quite a few.
We have Josh from Phoenix, Arizona. Go ahead, Josh.
Were slaves reprimanded for gossiping with each other about their freedom?
Well, there is a law that says if more than 5 Negroes gather without the presence of a white for the purpose of conspiracy, well, then there can be great trouble. You will be brought before the court, and depending on how severe they think it is, they can take your life. But if you're just gathering about and talking and yakking about any old manner of things, well, more than likely there will be no trouble. But considering these times, they get a little nervous if you just wink at each other funny.
All right, now we have Mike from Mishawaka, Indiana. Please go ahead, Mike.
Could a slave ever buy his own freedom?
Oh, surely, you can buy your own freedom. The truth of the matter is it ain't a real likely thing that's going to happen in this day and time. You see, slaves are very expensive in this year of our Lord, 1775. And the truth be known, most white folks can't afford to own slaves. And even if your master lets you do a little work on the side for yourself or something like that, it would take you more than a lifetime to raise the money needed to purchase yourself.
What factors influenced whether or not a slave would be loyal to the British or to the colonists?
Does being a free black mean you have all the rights of a British citizen? The answer is no.
Free blacks existed throughout the colonies, but they had to obey many of the same laws and curfews that applied to slaves.
The only difference between free blacks and slaves in the 18th century were that free blacks had the right to own and protect property.
You've seen how the word is spread, but what other issues go into taking a plan of action regarding Dunmore's unusual proclamation?
Lord have mercy, ain't you
you loud enough. I'm right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset nobody, let alone Mr. Everard. Just wanted to know how you doing.
All right, I guess.
I know you done heard about what the governor done done.
Can't help but. Bristol, Kate, Cupid, all of them standing around wondering what they gonna do. Come on with me to the kitchen, Aggie. It's a mess. I don't really know what to do or what to think about anything anymore. You run, that's what you do. Now, Eve, you know it's not that simple.
Well, it may not be that simple, but it ain't impossible.
That's right.
Sometimes you gotta take risks. That's all a part of living.
Aggie, you talking like you running to Norfolk.
Oh, yes, I'm going. And a whole bunch of folks from this here house alone.
Well, I just gotta ask, why y'all taking such a chance? You know, the Randolph's pretty decent folk. Just like Master Everard.
That ain't got nothing to do with it. Now, even though they may be decent folk, you still gotta ask permission to go and visit your own husband when you want to take a rest, even when you want to name your own flesh and blood. I don't care how you look at it, they ain't never gonna do right by us.
Well, who else is running? Now, I won't tell a soul. Y'all been knowing me some years now. You know I never crossed you.
Well, besides myself and Eve, why, there's Lucy and they talk of Billy and Henry and Peter and even Sally running.
Yeah, and folks is coming from Mr. Moody's and Mr. Dixon and Folse's Quarter and King's Mill and child, people's coming from everywhere. The time is now, Beck. Well, Aggie, what about your daughters? Are you gonna run off without them?
Well, Master Cordia's too ill to go, but she sure is begging me to go home. Of course, now my little Aggie, she's so in love with what? She says she ain't going until he gets back with Mr. Randolph.
Well, Eve, what kind of plans have you made? Well, come nightfall, we all gonna head out to North Quarter like we going to the gathering. But when we get there, we're gonna go along the riverbanks instead of the road. Then we're gonna look for Caesar. And he gonna get us in the north. Well, what about passes? You know those night watchmen and those colonial troops out there, you gotta have passes or something.
Miss Venus is getting them for us.
Venus? Now, you know they watch her as it is. You know her master is one of the Burgesses. Now, don't tell me she running too.
No, but she's gonna make up some passes. She's even gonna give us some money that she gets from selling chickens.
I don't know about all this. Now, Beck, you know this may be the only chance any one of us have. You know, Bristol said that new governor is quick to act, but not quick to think. Whole thing just scares me.
Listen, Beck, if this sounds like something that you can't do, we ain't gonna fault you for it. Besides, we gonna need you to stay back and act like ain't nothing going on. Going on about your business.
That's right. We depending on you to keep your head now. Now, we all know that you mighty powerful close to Mr. Everard, but we your kind, and we's depending on you to keep quiet. None of this is gonna matter once these white folks get in their head that something ain't right. Then it's gonna be hell to pay. Then don't it make sense that we do this? That we get on away from here? I don't know. I just don't know. But I will tell you this. I'll pray on each and every one of you.
Well, you do that. But you just remember that the good Lord helps those who help themselves. Besides, you know something else? I believe all that praying we've been doing is going to finally pay off.
Well, we got to be going now. But you take care of yourself. Let me say this. If I never lay eyes on you two again, just know I'll be praying on you.
What you doing scaring my horse? Where you bound?
Williamsburg. Mr. Moody's, you know it?
No, get on about your business. I'm blind as a bat. I can't see nothing. Now get on.
But, sir, you headed my way. I need a ride.
Boy, do you know what freedom is? Well, that's you and me. The only difference between you and me is that the white folks here let me stay where I'd be safe. That means that if I'm careful, I'll be free for a long time. If you lucky, you be free for a few months. Now you get on. Boy, if I help you, I lose the little bit of freedom I got. Helping the runaway, ain't worth it. Now you get on. Get on! Well, get back in the wagon and get up in this barrel. And I don't want to even hear you breathe, you hear me?
You got something to eat?
Get down in the barrel and be quiet. Walk on, Roger.
Running away to Dunmore for freedom was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. There had to be plans, complicated plans, filled with secrecy and signals in order to run to freedom.
It was dangerous with the colonial militias and slave patrols out and about. Not to mention what might happen if the masters caught you.
Even the others were willing to put a plan in motion. But what about Aggie? She was leaving her family behind for her own personal freedom. Freedom under these circumstances was not an easy decision.
We have Aggie with us to answer your questions.
We have Caitlin from Wichita Falls, Texas. Go ahead, Caitlin.
What is the difference between the work of the slaves in the fields and in the household?
What is the difference between the slaves who work in the house and the slaves who work in the fields, their work? Well, if you work in the house, you're chosen because you have a skill. It might be something that's handed down to you by your mama or your father or people who you've grown up around. And your treatment would be different in the house because you're usually more valuable, or you are. You cost more. Those who work out in the fields is going most of the time tend to crops like corn or might be growing tobacco, you see. And tobacco requires a lot of people, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a long time to work with.
Our next caller is Holly from Moreno Valley, California. Go ahead, Holly.
How would a slave know which house was a safe house when he or she ran away?
How would a slave know which house was a safe house if they ran away, I believe you said? Well, see, there's signs. Sometimes a person might hang something out, and you have an idea that there's a good person. Sometimes the slaves who get to move from one property to the other, they carry messages one to the other, so you might get a word from a slave who's traveling through what direction you might want to take.
We have Joel from Tempe, Arizona. Go ahead, Joel.
Yes, once a black gained his freedom, how hard was it for a white to take them back into slavery?
Well, you could be put back into slavery after gaining your freedom by leaving the area in which you were free. If you don't have your papers to prove that you are a free person, then you could be enslaved again somewhere else. Sometimes you might travel one colony to the other, and in trying to get there, you might have somebody take them from you. And if you don't have no way to get back to where you were, to get somebody to stand up for you to say you're a free person, then you might be enslaved again.
Our next caller is Jonah from Mishawaka, Indiana. Go ahead, Jonah.
What kind of food do the masters give the slaves?
Well, slaves are ration things like corn, and we make what is called hominy, something that you put in one pot and you let it cook maybe almost all the day, it seems. And whatever you got growing in your garden, because slaves do get to grow some things of their own. Those who work out in the fields might just throw that in there with it. So whatever the time of the year is and whatever is available goes into that pot. Master could give you some kind of meat. maybe once a month or maybe a certain holiday, like Christmas time, you might get it in your basket. Slaves get baskets for Christmas most of the time. So you might get a little extra then.
We have David from Perrysburg, Ohio. Go ahead, David. Go ahead, David.
How did the pregnant women have to do as much work?
I think you asked, did the pregnant women have to do much work? Oh, they're working if they're able to. You see, if a slave is even those sick, if you can lie out, and sometimes slaves pretend ill, but if a woman is pregnant and she's not able to work, the master don't want to damage the property that she's carrying inside. Because you see, when that woman has that child becomes the master's property. And that's more hands for the master, which means more value, worth more.
Our next caller is Henrika from Havana, Florida. Go ahead, Henrika. Andrika, I'm sorry.
If they did not make it to Norfolk, what would happen to their families, and did they feel guilty about leaving their kids behind?
I think I need you to repeat that again for me.
They did not make it to Norfolk. What would happen to their families, and did they feel guilty about leaving their kids behind?
If they didn't make it to Norfolk, what would happen to them, and what would happen to their kids that they leave behind? Well, hopefully you got a plan trying to get there. So hopefully you'll know, have an idea of what folks are going to assist you in trying to get there. As far as leaving your family behind, that depends on the master whose property they live on. Some masters is better than others. Some masters are meaner than others. And the punishment could be anything. If you do something wrong, master may take it out on your family. And God knows what that might be. There ain't no laws to protect slaves either. At least not too many I know of.
There's Rachel from Deerfield, Illinois. Go ahead, Rachel.
Who wrote the songs that they sing in the fields?
Who wrote the songs that they sing in the fields? Well, slaves make up things as they go along. Sometimes you may have a song that you sing for yourself. Sometimes you might have songs that you hear the master sing. Sometimes you can't sing along with him, but if you was working around him, you hear it, so you pick it up. And it might be something that you want to kind of catch on to. So you might make parts of it your own song. We got slaves of our own, some songs of our own, you see, that we've been hearing from our families around us singing. We just keep them going. We just carry them on. Sometimes you just make it up as you go.
Historians have documented that about 800 slaves took advantage of Dunmore's proclamation and over 5,000 during the course of the war.
Some say that this is a conservative estimate. Truth is, we don't really know.
We do know that Aggie ran and later came back and finished out her days as a slave for the Randolph family.
Eve also ran twice before finally being sold. We can only speculate about the others.
Some died fighting for the British, and some died running to the British.
We do know that it took a brave network of people to help those that ran, either through their silence or through their action.
Whether they were left behind to carry freedom in their hearts,
or held it in their hands while running through the rivers, fields, and forests.
All believed that one day they would declare,
"Don't want a slave no more."
Thanks for watching.
Goodbye from Colonial Williamsburg.
Sit on down, sit down, sit down and take your rest. You got to lay your head upon my Savior's breast. I love the Lord, my Savior and my God. Sit down, oh, sit down. Sit down, Father, sit down. Sit down and take your rest. You got to lay your head